Welcome back. Well, it's a topic, as I said, rarely discussed, but every single year more than 600 children go missing from the state's care. Now, it might surprise you to know, as we all look forward to spending time with those we love over the weekend, that across Australia there are close to 50,000 children living in out-of-home care. Earlier this week, Victoria's Commissioner for Children announced an investigation into why hundreds of children go missing from the state's residential care system each year. One organisation who are determined to use this inquiry to drive changes in how we deal with a growing number of children living in out-of-home care is Adopt Change. It's a not-for-profit group, and it has the strong belief that every child has the right to grow up in a safe, nurturing and permanent family home rather than grow up in state care. I'm joined now by their CEO, Renee, who is in our Sydney studio. Renee, thanks for your time. This is a really difficult subject for a lot of people because you don't like to think that we've got this many children in Australia growing up without a family, but 50,000, and it's a growing statistic, is a terrible indictment on where we are as a society, isn't it?
Absolutely. 50,000 could fill a football stadium. So that's how many kids we have in the care system. And the recent report the other day, 600 kids going missing from Victorian care, that's a whole primary school. And so that should horrify us. We shouldn't be happy with those numbers.
What's really interesting that in the statistics too, 3/4 of the children that are in care, if they're in care for more than 2 years, there's basically no chance they're going to go home. Those 3/4 of children then stay in care. So let's say they go in at 2 or 3 years of age. They're in care until the state washes their hands of them at the age 18. Now, Prue Goward, when she was the Minister in New South Wales, she brought in a new protocol that gave the family or the mum and dad of the child that was then relinquished to care 2 years to get their act together and plenty of resources to help them get their act together. But if they didn't, if they weren't in a position, let's say they were drug users, to have their children come back and live with them, those children were then available to be adopted by their foster carers. And it's really changed the system in New South Wales. Is there any chance other states might go down that path?
Look, I think nationally we have to recognise that we need to do everything that we can so that we can hand on heart say that everything has been done to keep those children at home. So there aren't really enough supports yet to try and keep families together. So we need to do that as step number one. But in many cases there are children that come into care that can't return home. And when we know that they can't and they're in state care until 18, we need to give children the opportunity to have a range of options available for them, for what's in their best interest. And in some cases that's adoption, in some it's guardianship with family. So there's a range of options. I guess what's horrifying is that for far too many children who have experienced abuse, neglect, come into what is supposed to be a child protection system, they sometimes have a worse experience in care than before they came into care. So really we have to have children not growing up in institutional care but in home-based care, and that's what's really important, is that stability. No matter what it's called or what legal order it is, they need to know that they are with a family that is with them, that is going to make decisions about parenting with them and for them and in their best interest.
And that they don't just rotate through either different care homes or different families. We know that some of them do change families almost every year, and they get to the age of 18 and they don't belong to anyone. They don't belong. They say they don't have a family at all that they can look back and, as they then become parents that have provided them with any sort of role model that is going to be there as grandparents are when you know we have our children. So that's the real worry in all of this too. What sort of life are we setting these kids up for? Because we know on so many of the indicators they really struggle and they turn up more than they should in prison and other sort of troubled statistics, particularly mental health.
Absolutely. Homelessness, early pregnancy, poor education, poor health. You know, just to put a bit of a face to it as well, I know of a 9-year-old girl at the moment who has been living in a hotel for almost 2 years because she's not in a foster home. And so living in a hotel, what that means is she has a printout at school of the 12 different care workers that she might get picked up by after school. So she needs to see those photos and know that one of these adults is going to pick her up. Can you imagine what that's like, not knowing who is the person that is going to care for you and to go home to a home-cooked meal? Look, this isn't about saying that foster care isn't acceptable. Often children will find suitable long-term caring homes in foster care. This is about when a child falls through the cracks far too often and bounces around the system, ends up in a hotel, ends up in residential group home, which is a group home again with shift workers. That's not raising a child in a home. We need to make sure we are raising children and providing them with the therapies that will help them to heal, not to harm them further than what they've already gone through.
Look, it's a measure of how humane we are as a society, how evolved we are, how we treat the most vulnerable. And a 9-year-old kid living in a hotel with 13 different would-be carers at night is a pretty horrific example. Renee, got to leave it there. Thank you very much. I'll tell people, please, though, adoptchange.org.au if you want to learn more about what they do and clearly about the 600 children going missing. If you can believe it, 600 a year out of the Victorian care system. Thanks for your time tonight.
Thanks, Peter.